Today we got a 54 TF in the shop. Alright, so it's raining today, so there's a little bit of background noise from the rain because unfortunately I still don't have a ceiling in there, and as long as I don't have a ceiling we're going to have that problem. Though I am making some progress on the walls here. So what we got here, got 54 TF. This thing has not been driven in a while, and it was towed in here because it won't start. Now, she did say that the battery was probably going to be dead on it. After charging the battery up and then trying it, turns out it's got a bad battery in it, as it'll only turn over a couple times and die. So that battery is 5 years old, which is about all you can expect these days out of a battery. So I can put the jump starter on it, the booster, and get it to turn over. Alright, so I got my big battery charger on here, and it's set for a 200 amp boost. So now we know it will turn over. So what I'm going to do now is just hit a little bit of ether in each carburetor. I already got the air cleaners loose. And we'll see if it fires. That'll be the quickest, easiest way to make sure we've got spark. Alright, so we know we've got spark. I didn't get the throttle, the pistons up to really get the ether up inside there, so it's about all it's going to do right now. So we need to get fuel. We must have a fuel delivery problem, so that's the next thing to check out. Well, I took the tops of the float bowls off and confirmed that they are dry. There's no fuel at all in either one of them. Now, I didn't actually hear the fuel pump ticking, which was a clue right there, but I didn't know how much she had tried to start it, or her neighbor tried to start it before bringing it over here to know whether the float bowls had anything in them to start with. Because if the float bowls are fuel, you really won't hear much ticking. So the next thing to do is look at the fuel pump. Now, where the earlier T-Series cars had the fuel pump up here on the cowl, for the TF they moved it back here behind the right rear wheel inside the frame rail in approximately the same location as they had it on the MGA and the MGB. So that kind of sucks when you don't have a lift to put it on, and it really sucks when you have a lift to put it on but you can't use it right now. So we'll have to get this thing jacked up on jack stands. So now fast forward about a week, 10 days or so, and the white bee's gone. Got the arms on the lift, got the got it finished shimming it, and got it all wired up. So now I don't have to put it on jack stands. I can actually lift it up on the rack. Now, I went ahead and just ordered a fuel pump for it too. I got that now. The owner of this car originally thought the fuel pump was dead and was completely, fully expecting to put a new pump on it. So while I probably could just clean the points and get it running again, we don't want any issues with it possibly not working at any point in time here, because she's going to just probably drive it a little bit and she's going to put it up for sale, and she wants no problems with it while she's trying to sell it. So we're not taking any chances. So a new pump it is. Now, being a T-Series, all of these bolts are all Whitworth. So I got my trusty King Dick Whitworth wrench sets out. So it's kind of tight to get up here and film taking this off, but it's basically just take the nut off here to get the, well actually negative wire on this case, because it's positive ground, off here, and a screw out of here to take the ground wire off, the 2 nuts for the fuel line, and 2 bolts here, and you pull it out. So we double check, everything looks cool, looks like it's the right stuff here. So we have to transfer this fitting over to here, and then take this off, because in this case we don't have a spade connector, and put this onto this bracket. Right now, since I'm still in transition with the shop, I don't have much workbench space to work off of, so we're working off my pile of foam today. We'll take this fitting off. Now it's a good idea to double check the angle that this was coming off at, and I'm going to set it approximately there. And once I get up into the car, we'll do final adjustments. We'll go ahead and fit this to the fuel line and then tighten this down to make sure that it's at exactly the right angle, because there's not really any give in that. And of course, I got my trusty King Dick socket set as well. It's really just a matter of reassembly is reversive removal. Just put this back up on the frame rail. Put those 2 bolts in through here. What I might do in this case is, this rubber is looking kind of, yeah, I'll see if I can find something to maybe replace that with, which might be a little difficult at the moment in the shop the way it is. And then I'll probably go ahead and take off this spade connector as well. And one other thing you might notice is I finally, in this last week, replaced my wireless mic. So the audio should start being a little better from here forward. Now I never toss these. I keep these and put them in a little drawer, because occasionally you do need one for like a coil or something like that. So I never throw anything away like that, especially when they're new. And just to show you, one thing that these earlier cars had was these here, which made disconnecting them and disconnecting them pretty easy. You don't really need any tools. All right, well, this is what was left of the rubber that was on the fuel pump. And I do know I've got at least 1 or 2 of those laying on here somewhere, but I have no clue where to find them right at the moment. But I did find a universal exhaust hanger that I cut apart and used the rubber from it. The hole spacing was about right. Thickness is about the same as the original. Cutting exactly in half, it's about the same length. It'd be much better than that. So now, of course, the idea of this rubber mounting on both sides of the bracket is that this fuel pump, ticks and makes noises as it throws back and forth. So the idea is that insulates it from the frame, so it's not transferring that noise through the frame. Quiets it down a lot. So now that we got it all up in here, I got all this loosely together, got this fitting up here lined up. So now I can go back through, tighten it here, and tighten that up, and then tighten these up and put the lock. And they had jam nuts on these, put the jam nuts back on them. And then just hook up the wire on the other side and should be good to go. So once I clean out the float bowls and put the carbs back together, I can put some fresh gas into the tank, and then we can turn the key, make sure that the system pressurizes, and look for leaks. Not just at the fuel pump, but also around the carbs here, because we don't know how long this thing's been sitting dry, and it's possible that it could leak out the bottom where the jets are if those cork seals have dried out too much. Okay, so I got the carbs cleaned out, got the float top lids back on it. Let's see what happens. Exactly what we're expecting it to do. Now I just gotta go around and look for leaks. Okay, so obviously what we got here is we have a needle and seat not closing off all the way because it is coming out the overflow. So we gotta look at that real quick. Sometimes just a quick tap on the sides of the float bowls and whatever little piece of dirt or whatever's in there will move, and that's all you need to do. Other times you're gonna have to take them apart and clean them. So now up here, what we want to do is we want to feel around all these connections. Make sure we don't feel any wetness at all. And right now it feels completely dry. That's a good thing. All right, a couple wraps on the side of the float bowl here with a screwdriver, and that fixed the problem. Actually, I suspected that this one was going to do it anyway because the needle and seat was binding a little bit. And as the float came up, it didn't want to close all the way, and just tapping on it fixed it. Next, we get to try to start it and see what happens. Now this thing might be a little hard to start or run a little rough at first because all the fuel in the lines was still some of the old stale stuff. So it may have to run for a few minutes to get the fresh stuff in, since I didn't even completely blow the lines out. Full out of me, isn't it? Now what we'll do is I'll end up tweaking on the carbs and test driving it and make sure everything's good before I get it back to it. So it looks like the generator doesn't want to charge quite right at idle. Not overly uncommon to see that. Like our clutch is way out of adjustment. Oh wow. Alright, our clutch is way out of adjustment. Really got to push it hard all the way to the floor to get it to do anything. I might end up adjusting that up a little bit for her. So she is going to be trying to sell this thing. One nice thing about this job is you do get to go out and go sample all these cars like this that maybe you can't afford, or you just don't want to own everything. You get you drive a nice variety of cars. Well, I don't have a good camera mount. I haven't figured that one out yet, so I'm going to test drive it without the camera. As I'm driving it, the clutch is starting to feel a little bit better, so it might have been just hanging a little bit to the pressure plate. And the brakes didn't feel so good at first, but they're getting better as I'm driving it. So the car just needed exercise a little bit. So I call that a successful test drive. All I really need to do here is adjust the idle of it, because I bumped the idle up initially. Now that I've worked out some of the old fuel out of the lines, idle's picked back up. I need to readjust that back down a little bit, and call her and let her know where we're at on it. So now about the clutch on this thing. I have seen T-Series clutches actually get stuck after only being stored for about a year or two. Now this one here, I'm not exactly sure how long it's been since it's been run, so it was probably the disc was sticking to the flywheel and just getting the clutch pushed all the way to the floor actually unstuck it on this one, which means it was just barely stuck. Usually if they're actually stuck any worse than that, you're going to have to start them in gear, push the clutch, and then hit the brakes, and then they'll usually pop free, depending on how long it's been since they've been used. Sometimes they take a little more than that, but a lot of times you can just get it started in gear, get the motor warmed up, start it in gear, get it moving, push the clutch in, hit the brakes. And sometimes they'll stall once or twice and then they'll break free and then you're good to go. And then just use it a little bit and they'll get smoother. You know, maybe a little grabby at first and you're good to go. So that's all we're going to be doing on that TF this time. If you'd like to see more cars like the T-Series or even Bug Eye Sprites, things like that, let me know. Comment below. Tell me that you do want to see stuff other than MGAs and MGBs. So, this is MG Rob. Later.